So welcome everyone for joining us today for the Texas Children in Nature Virtual Summit presentation on a youth-led discussion on equity, diversity, and inclusion in the outdoors. We are really excited to have some panelists here today from the Austin Parks and Rec Department and the Park Ranger Cadet program. I'm going to let them introduce themselves in just a moment, but just a few housekeeping things. We are going to be recording today's session. So if you have a problem with being recorded, please let me know in the chat and we can make sure that you don't show during the recording. Also, if you're not one of our presenters, have your video off. That would be fantastic. That way we can save on some bandwidth as we go through today's discussion. Once again, thank you everyone for joining us. This presentation will be available. The recording will be available later. I will email everyone with the link to that presentation as it's recorded as well. So once again, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to turn it over to Kirsten and let her introduce our panelists for today.
I'm actually going to hand it right over to Ellyssa, who's starting us off. So hi everyone, thanks for being here.
Hello, my name is Ellyssa, and today our presentation will be on equity, diversity, and inclusion in the outdoors. And to start off our kind of introduction, we're going to go right into Brandon.
Cool. Hi, I'm Brandon Contreras. I'm a park ranger for the city of Austin, and I graduated from the cadet program in 2019. Growing up, my relationship with the outdoors was really hands-on. I used to go around and grab frogs and toads and just kind of look at them and just very curious about things outside. And I think that definitely kind of it's still very present in me, just kind of teaching and just teaching all around. And then I'll pass it on to Ellyssa.
Hi everybody, as I just mentioned 30 seconds ago, my name is Ellyssa Saldivar, and I am a park ranger for the city of Austin, and I was a cadet and I graduated in the year 2017. And much like Brandon, my experience with nature growing up was really hands-on. My grandparents used to take care of me when I was younger, so after school we would walk everywhere, and I have this one specific memory where we were walking and on the side of the road there were some wild sunflowers growing, and my grandpa's immediate thought was, oh, you know who would like that? Your grandma. So he pulled out his pocket knife and essentially just dug this sunflower out of the ground, and we kind of just took turns carrying it for 20 minutes all the way back home. So yeah, and now we're gonna go into introductions for Kirsten, Lydia, and Udia.
Before we bounce off to me, Ellyssa, do you mind telling us why you do this work? That was part of our intro too. And Brandon,
yeah, sorry about that. I do this work because growing up, before I was in the Park Ranger Cadet program, I didn't know having an outdoor career was a possibility, that I could get paid to do something that I enjoyed and did for fun. And now that I know that there are really great career opportunities in outdoor career fields, I kind of want to be a role model for young adults who look like me, who can relate to my experience and who I can relate to their experience. So I think I do it so other kids see that they have other options than the standard options that were given growing up.
Hi, I'm Kirsten Johansson. I coordinate the cadet program and get to work alongside with these amazing young folks. I was not in the cadet program myself. And let's see, my connection up to nature growing up, I grew up in a really small town in Vermont. So I pretty much just lived in the woods, and nature was very much part of my daily life and who I am and was. And I've always carried with me a sense of feeling very grounded and peaceful when I'm in natural spaces, and try to, bring that into my daily life currently and share it with others. Why I do this work, specifically at the intersection of environmentalism and racial equity, is because I have over the years become acutely aware of the racial disparities in society and specifically in the outdoor work. And as a white woman, I want to look at my power privilege and see where I can make an impact for racial equity and sustainability for our planet.
So hello, my name is Lydia Gomez. I work for the City of Austin Park Rangers as a peer mentor. I was a cadet for the class of 2020. And growing up, my relationship to the outdoors was definitely something different. I never had that connection growing up. So that kind of like led to like the cadet program, which opened new opportunities for me and experiencing the outdoors in a whole different perspective than what I had before. So that's basically why I do this work, to kind of encourage those people who didn't have that connection to nature growing up, and kind of encouraging them that they have the same opportunity as me.
Hello, my name is Uriel Martinez, or Uriel Martinez. I am a graduate of 2020. My relationship with the nature when I was growing up was I was always fascinated by animals. I always thought they were crazy on how like different some animals could be. Some have gills, some don't, all that crazy stuff. And the reason I do this work is just to spread knowledge. There's a lot of people who don't know stuff and like are in the dark. What I want to do is just get them out of the dark, explain to them why this work is important, why it's beneficial, and why everybody needs to learn stuff like this in their everyday life.
Cool. So now that we know everybody, looking at the outline of the presentation, we're going to start off with why racial equity in the outdoors. We're going to continue on with the cadet program introduction, our wider impacts, and then our call to action.
So before, equity is recognizing that people are not the same, but do deserve access to the same opportunities as others, while equality is treating people alike without acknowledging those differences, whether that's age, gender, language, or ability, and that sometimes often results in unfair outcomes. So by having equitable programs, this creates accommodations for differences so that the outcomes are the same for all individuals. So from looking at slide 5, where we touched on equity and equality, in reality, history has caused a lot of disparities, but the goal really is liberation, where we kind of remove those barriers so that everyone has equal outcomes.
Cool. Now that we have a really good shared understanding of what equity means, we can answer why racial equity. Race is the biggest predictor of outcomes, which includes housing, employment, education, life expectancy, and health. Looking a little close at home, Austin has a 15-year difference between West Austin and East Austin. Vision for racial equity per the city's equity office is racial equity will have been achieved when race is no longer the biggest predictor of life outcomes. The city of Austin recognizes historical and structural disparities and the need for alleviation of these wrongs by critically transforming its institutions and creating a culture of equity.
Okay, so now that we've touched on why racial equity, we're going to do why racial equity in the outdoors. So we recognize that not only is there a long legacy of exclusion that limits people of color's ability to connect with the land, it's also an institutional and systemic problem that can be seen from backcountry to boardroom, which we'll touch on in the next slide. But the legacy of colonization and slavery separated people from the land and each other. So there was land taken from Native and Indigenous peoples who originally steward the land. And then we have Black people enslaved and forced to work the land that was stolen from the Native and Indigenous peoples. So the time outdoors in remote areas is seen as unsafe, just because of this long line of history where it's taken, and people who were enslaved were forced to work the land in order to kind of let the white people profit off of these things that they've stolen from other countries, or sorry, other cultures. So multiple barriers will still exist: time, money, and know-how. So not a lot of people kind of have the know-how of how to use green spaces and how to kind of just how to work that into their life. They kind of just see being outdoors as a privilege and not something to do on a daily basis, if that makes sense.
Ellyssa, you mentioned earlier some fear of violence that you have seen maybe within your community and Hispanic communities. Could you talk about that for just a moment?
Yeah. So again, touching back on that fear of violence, just in the last recent years, kind of with the political standing of our country as a whole, a lot of Hispanic I'm just gonna say some Hispanic families don't exactly feel safe being outdoors just because of the fear of immigration coming to green spaces, which has happened in the past. And so with that kind of reputation put on our green spaces as a whole, it's kind of a deterrent for keeping people out. So it's like another barrier that history hasn't seen, but has seen in the past years. Kind of where people are less encouraged to go out with the fear of being taken from their homes and away from their families. And so now we're going to start with this quote that I really love. Nothing about us without us is for us, which basically means there are people in boardrooms who are making decisions for communities of color when there's no actual representation of those communities in those boardrooms. Nobody from those communities is going in and kind of voicing their opinions on what should happen. There are people who have no idea what it's like to live in our communities, making decisions for us that are ultimately not going to benefit us in any way. And this is kind of just another example where you kind of have you kind of have the dominant story of the people who you see outside, which are typically white men with very few representations of color. And if you look, it's kind of the same throughout multiple aspects. You can kind of see we have the magazine covers where it's mostly white men and white women, and then we go to our boardrooms of those people who are making these big decisions, and they kind of lack diversity needed to make decisions for people of color or the communities that they're ultimately trying to serve.
Sorry, y'all, bear with me for a moment. I'm going to try to turn on the closed captionings. And I haven't done this on Zoom before. So. Oh, I think it's working.
All right. All right, now on to the outdoors and outdoor careers. So talking about the history of exclusion to the outdoors. Parks were segregated up until the 1960s, and then recreation, which is a leisure and a privilege. Now onto the audience. So asking yourselves this, what does your network look like? The current diversity of environmental educators, current diversity of organizational staff, current diversity of leaders and decision makers, boards of directors, and who do you serve? Who do your participants look like? How do they identify? Just look at that and just ask yourself that. And just dig deep.
Okay, now we're going to go into what the Park Ranger Cadet program is. What it is and what our impacts for our students are. So the park ranger mission is we serve as ambassadors for Austin's park system by cultivating stewardship, promoting responsible recreation, and preserving Austin's cultural, natural, and historic resources.
Now talking about the Park Ranger Cadet mission, which is we work alongside youth participants to help them move into their power as leaders and environmental stewards in order to collectively create a more sustainable and equitable park system. We want to increase access to park jobs, increase diversity in this profession, and hire people who represent the communities we serve.
Sorry,
No.
trying. Is this the right one, Udia?
Yeah.
Okay. Closed captionings are messing with me.
It's all right, you're good. Now on to the racial equity and the cadet program, which is the city of Austin recognizes historical and structural disparities and the need for alleviation of these wrongs by critically transforming its institutions and creating a culture of equity. And racism is real and prevalent. Some years ago, park rangers observed a lack of diversity on the team. Our unit should be representative of the communities that we serve. They asked for those who have been historically excluded. How can we increase the access to our career field? The cadet program was formed as an opportunity to gain experience and a pathway to jobs, particularly for students of color, and reduce some of the inequity in our career field.
So now moving on to barriers, the first question is, at any time did you encounter any challenges or barriers in connecting to nature or pursuing a career in environmental or nature-based work? So for me, I mentioned earlier how I never had that connection growing up with nature, which kind of led to the thought of, oh, maybe I'm not too knowledgeable about the outdoors like everybody else. And so that simple thought kind of created that lack of confidence within myself, as well as just not seeing people who kind of look like me in these types of jobs. Growing up, I always felt like environmental field work, like people who were in those careers it was like more of a white person job. So not seeing many people of color had that effect of also lack of confidence within myself. And the next question is, to your understanding, what are ways in which racial inequity presents barriers to young BIPOC, Black, Indigenous people of color interested in pursuing this work? So like I mentioned, the lack of BIPOC representation within these jobs, so not seeing people who look like them. Growing up, again, I always felt like these jobs were more of a white person job. So just that type of lack of representation really is just kind of discouraging in a way, as well as just not being able to grow up with the same privilege and access to certain things, like awareness of recreation opportunities. A lot of BIPOC communities don't have that awareness of it, and if they do, they don't have someone to kind of guide them to those opportunities, as well as just kind of financial circumstances. So what is the Cadet program? The Cadet program is a year-long practicum course with the Austin Independent School District at Aikens High School, where they are able to work alongside the City of Austin Park Rangers during the school year. And then at the end of the school year, cadets have the opportunity to work in the summer as a paid intern, which can later lead into the position of a peer mentor leadership position.
All right, cool. So now let's take a look at our program in its entirety. So we start off with a year-long practicum at Aikens High School, which is an AISD school. From there on, you kind of have two options as a student. So you can either become a cadet alumni, so you're moving on into maybe college or anything like that. And we still help those kids out with professional support and networking and anything other that we can possibly help with. But sticking with the program, we enter our paid summer internship, where we do a variety of things, like doing recreational things with students. And then we move on into the cadet peer mentors. And after that, we have a menu of job opportunities that we can hopefully put you in. So that includes the park rangers, working at the Nature and Science Center, the Camacho Activity Center. I personally went through the year-long practicum, went into the paid summer internship, became a peer mentor, and then for a little bit I worked for the Nature and Science Center as an instructor, and then eventually became a full-time park ranger. And if Ellyssa, if you could kind of share your route, that'd be cool. Ellyssa, you're on mute.
Sure. Sorry about that. So just like Brandon, I did the year-long practicum, and then I went into 2 summers as a paid intern, and I eventually became a cadet peer mentor. And then just like Brandon, I also worked at the Austin Nature and Science Center for a little bit. But as I was getting transitioned into my position there, I had applied to a full-time ranger position a couple months before that. And halfway through my training as an instructor, I kind of got a phone call that I was hired as a full-time ranger. And if Lydia and Uriel want to share their pathway.
So for me, like Brandon and Ellyssa, I was also a cadet. I was a cadet for 2 years during high school, so my junior and senior year. My junior year, I worked teaching Spanish-speaking classes to rangers, while my senior year, I did a lot of land management work and data collecting research, which led to my position now as a peer mentor, where I'm kind of focusing on more of the education aspect of it, as well as also focusing on a lot of racial equity. So yeah, and I'll pass it over to Uriel.
Yeah, for sure. So as they said before, I only did 1 year of the cadet practicum. After that, I did the paid internship over the summer. Did the same thing Lydia did, land management and data collecting. And after that, I am here now as a park peer mentor. And then after that, I'm focused on trying to get into the park rangers and maybe into the Nature Science Center. Hoping. But yeah, that's me.
Okay, now we're going to talk kind of how we fund our program. So the program is free to all students who join. And our budget includes the cost of our full-time rangers. So that includes Kirsten, Brandon, and I, and any other ranger who happens to help out with any particular class. And then we have a budget solely for the cadets of $20,000, and 95% of that is specifically for intern salary. So that's just money that we pay to our interns for doing all of their work. And we also get outside funding from Texas Parks and Wildlife and the Nature Conservancy, just to kind of help us along the way and kind of help us get either new gear or provide newer experiences for our students that we couldn't before. But we're always looking for outside or other ways of funding our program.
Cool. So now looking at the actual practicum, like I said, it is with Austin Independent School District. So Aikens High School is the specific school that we're at. It's a year-long practicum course, and we follow TEKS. Yeah, and then we have about 6 hours of class, so usually on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Sometimes we go in on Fridays, but usually Tuesdays and Thursdays. We have 16 hours of required outside class time that we call work experience. So that could be either riding along with rangers, doing volunteer, or anything like that. It takes place in parks and in the classroom. Majority of the times we are out in field trips, not too much in the classrooms, which students really enjoy. And this is what it looks like usually, but this year, as we all know, we've been impacted by COVID. So we've been doing everything remotely and through Zoom, but we're still trying to accommodate everything and then just give them the best experience possible, but still following TEKS.
All right. So over the curriculum, we go over many types of trainings and learnings. The first few are the outdoor safety and the risk management, and then the park rules and ranging. To the left, you can see students working with how to treat a wound and how to use the first aid kit. And then to the right, you can see a park ranger teaching cadets how to follow rules, the basic rules, and then basically. And then onto that is next is environmental studies and natural resource management, which is we go over many topics like hydrology, biology, what else? And basically, that's about it, yeah.
We also do a lot of outdoor recreation. So prior to COVID, we would go kayaking, fishing, caving, also tree climbing, a lot of fun activities. And so, yeah. And then moving on, we did a lot of service learning and volunteer projects. So habitat restoration, tree identification, measurement and tracking, air quality monitoring, wildlife camera installation, maintenance, and data review. And those are just some examples. And we also had the opportunity to lead and learn how to lead programs with kids in the outdoors. So leadership and leading programs, cultural competency, inclusion and equity, as well as professionalism, which is college and career support, where we also help cadets kind of like fill in resumes and like create cover letters.
All right, so over the curriculum, we get all types of certifications. First being the Leave No Trace certification. After that being the American Red Cross, Adult, Child, and Infant First Aid, CPR, and AED. After that is Texas Park and Wildlife Angler Education. And then USA Archery, Level 1 Archery Instructor Certification. And after that is Project Wild Educator, Association of Fish and Wildlife, and we hope to see and add more.
Okay. So these are a couple of impacts from our past class. So 8 out of 10 of our cadets are more likely to visit parks, which is great. We love to hear it. 10 out of 10 of our cadets tried a new outdoor activity, which is kind of what we thrive on in the program. We want them to get new experiences and kind of dip their toes into different things. 8 out of 10 feel more connected to nature, which is the overall view for this program. 8 out of 10 feel that they have gained skills needed to be a leader in their community. 10 out of 10 felt they were supported with college application process, and 9 out of 10 felt more prepared to apply to jobs. And then we have just a couple of quotes from our past cadets. So we from Sheridan Ray, a 2020 graduate. She said, "Throughout the year, I became more confident and gained more friendships. I always felt like I was having fun and it didn't feel like actual schoolwork. I always got to network and meet Heather Culkin, who runs Families in Nature, and she gave me a full scholarship to go on a trip to Key Largo to stay at a marine lab for 5 days. Lastly, I was able to help my community through service projects, leave no trace, and develop stronger skills in fishing, caving, canoeing, kayaking, hiking, biking, slacklining, and snorkeling." And then we have our last quote from Pedro Hernandez. "I really didn't care for nature before. Now, because of this program, I go and teach my friends or strangers about nature." And I think another awesome thing about both of these past cadets and interns, Sheridan just got accepted and has started school at UT in their environmental sciences course, I believe, Kirsten. And Pedro, he really, like he said, he really didn't care for nature. And now he is the team lead, I guess you could say, for Utah conservation. So he's out in Utah doing a lot of conservation work. And those are just like some of our bigger impacts for our cadet class.
And on this slide, do any of our presenters want to share any of your favorite kind of impacts thinking back to when you were in that high school practicum course?
Yeah, I can start off with my favorite one, which was caving. I didn't know what caving was, Before it, I had never heard of caving. When we first went, I was like, okay, we get to go in a cave, cool. But then once we actually went in there, we were like really, really close to everything, learning with the car systems and things like that. And I really, really enjoyed that. Every time there's an opportunity to go caving, I'm all for it. So caving definitely changed I can't even say my life, but you know, I really enjoyed caving.
And I guess I will go next. I think the whole experience I had as a cadet was one of my favorite times, just because when I first was a cadet, and Kirsten could testify against this, I was really shy, really kept to myself, really quiet, and I would take in all this information, and out of nowhere, I would just like blurt out all of these things, like as time went on. And because of the cadet class, I like to think that I am the person I am today. I am very outspoken, and I kind of just want to improve everybody's situation no matter what. And I'm always ready to kind of get my hands dirty and get to work and kind of just help.
So I guess I'll share next. I guess my story is a little bit similar to Ellyssa. I know for sure, like you have known me when I was in the cadet class, I was never that type to like step forward whenever they'd ask questions. I always kept to myself. But I guess like with being in the cadet practicum as well as just in the peer mentorship position now, I've definitely grown into, I guess I would say, a leader, really. I've changed. I feel like if you would have known me like a year ago, you would have been like, wow, like, who's that? Like, that's not her. But yeah, as well as kind of like the friendships between all of us in the cadet class, I feel like they were really close. We were all really close. So that was also a bonus. But yeah.
I would say I was kind of the opposite of Lydia and Ellyssa. I was kind of the person that was like kind of like outgoing, kind of loud, kind of always had fun. Try to look at the fun stuff of it. Basically, the whole cadet class was a experience, an amazing experience, by the way. Getting to experience new things with my classmates, be with my friends. I feel like everybody in there was my friend. Hung around, had fun, experienced new things. The whole thing was just memorable to me. And then the activities we did after school, relating to the program, like Roots and Wings. That was
Nice Roots and Wings shout out. Still happening, I believe.
Yes.
And Lydia and Uriel, did you see yourself working in an environmental job before the cadet class?
Ooh, I can answer this one. No. If I'm being completely honest, I definitely would have thought that I would have been like, I don't know. I honestly don't even know. But my answer is a straight no. I didn't have that connection with nature growing up, so I never imagined myself having to do work with like the outdoors. So I guess it's such a big change, really. But I mean, it's a good change. It's a good change. But no.
I'm on the same boat. I never thought I would see myself in this type of, in this type of job. Honestly, didn't know what I was gonna do. And then once I got into this program, it just pulled me in. Like everything interested me. Everything got me like super knowledgeable. And I was just like, whoa, this is crazy. Like I think back to, I'm like, I would have like, if I went back in time and saw myself now, I would have been like, that's a whole new person. Like, who is this? I would have never seen myself before.
Okay, well, it was really nice hearing those from y'all guys. It's really great to hear those things. I'm sorry. I really like hearing all these folks speak, especially Lydia and Ulian. They are amazing. But we're going to go into what our summer internship looks like. And in these photos, these are kind of photos from all of our interns, excluding the ones from this past summer. But these are all of the folks who have been an intern with us over the past 3 years now.
Cool. So now looking at the summer internship, after the year-long class at Aikens High School, cadets apply and interview for the summer internship. And we range from having we've had the lowest being 6 and then the highest being 11, just depending on how much funds we have. So we always pay our internship. That's something that I personally am always going to advocate for, is paying your interns. Always pay, please do. So we started off with $13 an hour, but now we have the city's minimum, which is $15 an hour, and they actually even get some perks, which is actually paid sick time. So we're trying to take care of our interns as much as possible because they are providing work that's really, really, really valuable. And it's usually the entire summer, by the way. I forgot to mention that. It's just the entire summer, so 8+ weeks. And now we can look at their roles as an intern.
So the intern roles are lead recreation programs, bilingual outreach in Spanish class for rangers, conservation work, and mentoring younger cadets. So of course this year was completely different because of COVID. Definitely a lot different than previous summers, but we still wanted to have a meaningful experience for the interns. So we came up with safe work opportunities like land management, as well as research projects where we went to different parks and collected data demographics of park users and activities, as well as created digital programming, content, and next step support.
And then another key part of the summer internship is actually paying our interns to apply to schools and apply to jobs. So in these photos, we're all sitting around computers applying for colleges and kind of making those next steps for after the summer, all while getting paid. Okay, so impacts for interns.
So now on to the impact for interns. We got to give little quotes that past cadets said and how they've been impacted by the program. Let's read one from Park Ranger Brandon, what he said before. The program was a phenomenal experience that opened the gates to the outdoors and taught me a lot. Before the practicum, I never had an interest in any career in the outdoors, but thanks to the practicum and the internship, it has given me many opportunities to explore new paths, and now I know that I love the outdoors. What is that? A year ago, I kind of closely relate to Brandon like that. I never thought I would see myself in like any outdoor career, but it honestly, this program opened my eyes, opened a lot of doors for me. It made me realize this program is really cool and like really amazing. And, like the stuff it does for you, it just blows my mind.
Cool. Oh wait, no, sorry, wrong slide. Oh no. Okay, cool. So now looking at impacts, job-wise. So we're looking at some of the jobs that we've had our interns go into. So we have Ranger Peer Mentors, which is something that I did, and currently Lydia and Uriel are our peer mentors. We've had people work at Austin Nature and Science Center. I'm over there to the right with my blue shirt on. We've had people work at Camacho, Zilker Botanical Gardens. We've had people work as park monitors, climate ambassadors, and we're continuing to expand those jobs.
All right, on to the peer mentorship, which is 2 to 3 cadet interns are selected to serve as pay-in coordinators and facilitators of the next generation of cadet students in the practicum during the school year. And some of those positions are funded through a partnership with the Nature Conservancy. I'll share one thing about my favorite thing about being a peer mentor. It's basically being a leader to the younger generation, basically, teaching them things we were taught and all that amazing stuff.
To me, that peer mentorship has been one of our most impactful strategies. Having folks who have just had the lived experience of being a cadet is vastly more valuable than I will ever be as an educator for our cadet students. So when we started the peer mentorship partnership with the Nature Conservancy, 3 years ago, I saw just incredible growth of our cadet students of being more comfortable in the class, feeling more connected to nature, and really trying things in a whole new way. So if you're looking towards creating these kinds of programs, paid peer mentorship is a hugely valuable strategy. Does anyone else want to share the peer mentorship, what that's been like for you as a peer mentor, or in the flip as a student to a peer mentor?
I think it's just cool, like you said, that like we graduated like a year or two after they graduated, so we know what's going on, we know what they're usually thinking about because we were once in that position, and I just like helping people. Well, I know I messed up a lot in high school, so just trying to help them and steer them in a better direction, or at least making things a little bit clearer for them. I really enjoy that aspect.
Yeah, I think I feel the same way. So when I was a peer mentor, I was out of school for 2 years technically. And so I kind of still had those fresh experiences, but also those experiences of being out of high school, kind of dealing with like the adult world, and kind of talking and getting to know our students. I know, like, just don't mean to throw Brandon under the bus, but with Brandon, he was really quiet and kind of just didn't really talk much, but he knew all of the information. And so we worked really hard and kind of schemed like on the sidelines, like, okay, somebody go talk to Brandon and like get him to answer this question because we know he knows it. Like the information is there. He just doesn't want to do it. And I'm really glad that we decided to do that because Brandon has become an amazing leader over the past couple of years that I've known him. And yeah, and like, I guess it's weird because we're teachers to the students, but we also kind of unknowingly build these kind of friendships with our students. And so I think by the end of the school year and into the summer, we're no longer seeing each other as kind of teacher and student. It's just like, oh, she's my friend, and like we're learning all of this new stuff together, which is really nice. And it's kind of just somebody your age who you can bond with, who knows exactly what you're kind of going through at the moment. And now I'm considered old to all of the new interns, so it's kind of hard.
Cool. So now moving on to another aspect, elevating youth voices, and again, paying them. I'm going to say that over and over. So yeah, we have professional speaking opportunities. We serve on city connecting children to nature youth leadership working groups. I personally presented at a ton of conferences. I presented at American Public Gardens Association, the Nature Conservancy, and a lot of things. And this is where I usually advocate for the paying for internships. Again, pay them.
Professional speaking opportunities is definitely a big piece of our peer mentorship. And like currently, we have an experience right now, but I think this is just a great way to get our younger folks' voices out there and have other people, adults who've been doing this work for a long time all around Texas or wherever, listen to a different perspective.
Okay, so now we are going into the benefits that the Park Ranger program has, or the Park Ranger Cadet program has for Park Rangers in general. So 10% of the Ranger total educational contacts every year, or our students count for 10% of our educational contacts for the year, which is roughly about 5,000 people that we are contacting, and that's just 10%. So. And then hundreds of hours of service provided. So our students, while in class and outside of class, are expected to do some kind of service project for the community. And that's kind of where those hours come from. Employees who are more representative of communities we serve. So myself, Brandon, Lydia, and Uliel all come from Aikens High School. So we represent kind of Southeast Austin, which is our community. And we all have kind of our own different outlooks on things that our community could be improved on. We provide real lived experiences within the park systems. Legacy of inclusivity, provide a network of access and positive leaders in wider communities. So, So benefits to Rangers, so full-time success. So Brandon and I and our fellow coworker Albert Navarro are all Rangers who've come out of the Park Ranger Cadet program with full-time kind of benefits. So it's really great, and it's kind of like this is what the program was meant for, was to try and get more diversity within our unit in general. And I think it was really great that our program manager kind of seen the lack of diversity that was there and decided to take a step and make a change towards kind of fixing our own problem within our own unit. So it's just amazing that we have coworkers who have been doing this for way longer than we have, who realized that kind of obstacle that their own unit was facing. Okay, and then we have developing a racial equity perspective, call to action for courageous leaders. So like Brandon said, pay young people. I think we hear too often that they're like somebody's in an internship, but it's an unpaid internship, but they're doing this really important work. I think a big part, especially for communities of color, if somebody gets a cool opportunity to work as an intern for whatever career field they decide to be in, and it's unpaid, it's really hard to choose between taking this unpaid opportunity that could help you further your future or working your full-time job that's going to help you pay your bills and help you kind of contribute to your family. So I think paying for the work that young people are doing is super important. Also, think about the definition of being equitable and what equity means. And then be open-minded, listen to others, especially young people. I think a lot of older folks kind of tend to write off young people as unknowledgeable and inexperienced. But I think young people have a really unique outlook because we're living in the world now, and things are different than what they were a couple of years ago. Even 5 years ago, things are so much different. And I think our young people have a really unique outlook because I think young people are more in tune with that and kind of have their own thoughts of solutions that they could make.
Ellyssa, we have a question in the chat that I think goes really well with this slide, which is just, can you repeat the equity and equality definitions for when you're thinking about the definition of equitable and what equitable means?
Yeah, no problem.
Oh, I have it if you want me to say it, because I have it open already. Okay.
Yeah.
So equity is recognizing that people are not the same, but do deserve access to the same opportunities, while equality is treating all people alike without acknowledging the sort of differences that they might have, whether that's age, gender, language, or ability.
And to kind of close us out, as a white person doing this work and leading a program that focuses on racial equity and primarily works with students of color, a couple things that have been really helpful for me and takeaways that I'm definitely encouraging other folks in a similar position to take on after today's presentation is learn and be really self-reflective. Start with yourself. This takes, racial equity is all about you first and really learning and unlearning and listening to people of color particularly, but really taking on the work to do yourself and not asking people of color to educate you as a white person. Be okay with having uncomfortable and difficult conversations. I feel decently comfortable now having this conversation, but this has taken a long time for me to feel brave to talk about race and acknowledge my race and look at myself as part of the racist system and like work to become an ally, which I said become an ally, but then I'm going to immediately correct myself and work on being an ally, because an ally is a verb. It's a consistent, constant learning and unlearning, and it's daily action, momentary action. So definitely I can encourage everyone who is white and working towards racial equity, especially in the environmental field, to learn about the history, learn about yourself, and listen to people of color who are advocating for certain things. Gatekeeping, look at yourself and where you have power and privilege and see where you can open doors and bring other people in. Who's not in the room, who needs to be in the room, especially during decision-making events or groups. Funding, racial equity needs to be a budget line item. If you're not having a specific line item for racial equity work, it's more of a performative action. Really needs to come with that monetary bite to actually make an impact there. Hiring and staff, definitely encourage folks to hire people who come from the communities you serve and work with, and not just hire, but work to retain and make your office culture a space of learning together and growing together, and focusing and bringing up, being brave to bring up racial equity and offer opportunities for growth and advancement with the folks that you hire. And with that, I think my next slide. I loved this quote from Carolyn Finney, the author of Black Faces, White Spaces, which is a great book if you have not yet read it. It's not that you need to be perfect, but you need to know exactly where you're at in your own growth in order to meet someone else with honesty and clarity, and in order to do no harm. So we talk a lot about our intent versus impact. And I think this quote just is a really nice food for thought to kind of leave us off on.
Kirsten, we have a few questions.
Sure.
The first one is if you could review the impact slide and those questions that you gave to everyone. They think it was slide 22.
Was it the 2 questions?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, I might take a second there. I know we have another question. If you just mind,
Yes,
don't mind reading it out.
Yeah, the next one is how do we avoid tokenism while actively seeking to increase diversity on our board and within our volunteers?
Okay, so we'll table that one for a second. Is this the slide that the person, I think
no, Matsi says no.
Was it the quotes for the kids? We're also going to be sharing this presentation. Sarah's going to send it out later. Was there a particular question on the slide that you're looking at, Masi?
If you said, okay, sounds great for me sending out the slide. And then Masi, I'll also share Kirsten's contact information. So please feel free to reach out to her as well.
Actually, I'll put that up on the screen for us if you want to take a photo of this, or again, Sarah's going to share this out to follow up and continue conversations with us as, you know, as you're looking at this work or taking more time to think about what we said today. And then going back, I'm scrolling back to the question.
I can read Courtney's question out to you again.
Thank you.
Which is, how do we avoid tokenism while actively seeking to increase diversity on our board and within our volunteers?
That's a good question, and that's challenging. And I think of tokenism as mainly when you ask someone to represent a whole group of people. like example, asking a Black person to represent the Black thought as like a monolith. And I think to avoid tokenism in that sense is you treat everyone as an individual and recognize their lived experience is different, and they can only share on behalf of themselves and their experiences. So that's one way. And I think often tokenism comes with just hiring one person for like a diversity hire. And, you know, that might be a place where organizations are starting to shift this culture and kind of get actual diversity, racial diversity on their staff. But I think that's just where it starts. And you can think about, well, you know, why do we only have one person of color on our staff if that's where y'all are at, and work towards getting a staff that's more representative of the communities that you work with. So I'm not sure if I totally answered your question, Courtney, but if you want to continue the conversation, please reach out to me, and then, you know, maybe we can share articles and sources that are more specific to yours. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the comments again to see if there's a response from Courtney. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you, Courtney. Were there any other questions, Sarah?
I did not see any that came through, but we probably have time for one more question if someone wants to put one in the chat. Okay, well, thank you to all of our presenters today. You guys were fantastic. Oh, here's a question, is how are you going to fund the program in the future?
Thank you for asking that question, April. We are always looking for different funding sources, much like many nonprofits or government programs. We have some things in the work, but the funding I'm really trying to advocate for is this apprentice level or post-summer internship level work, where we're finding positions and helping the sponsor organization pay for the intern's salary and kind of work into this next level of job opportunity. We're doing okay with funding for our summer and looking for smaller pools of funding, but we're really focused on careers and finding that. So your answer is, it's uncertain and it's always evolving of how we find funding. So if I saw some people say they had some grant things that were popping up in the chat. So we definitely appreciate any suggestions that people might have for funding, or if you're looking to partner and support this program, please reach out. We would love to hear from you and talk about how we can collaborate.
And then Michelle has a question, is your team also looking at, let me find, it got buried, okay. Is your team also looking at other ways to not make funding be a barrier and continue sustainability, balance, and or other ways?
Yes, so it would be great if we could have, I think I'm going to answer that. I'm going to answer this and I'm not sure if I'm getting exactly what you mean. So again, feel free to reach out. Our team is looking for more sustainable funding sources so that I don't have to spend a significant portion of my time or other folks' time looking for funding. So that is to be determined, but we have some thoughts and we're working on maybe a more longer term plan. So if you have suggestions, again, we'd love to hear it.
Well, we are right at 2 o'clock. So thank you, everyone. We will be redoing this session again at 7. And so I apologize that closed captioning, we were having issues with it today. Hopefully it'll be working at 7. I was working in Zoom for most of the back end of this meeting, trying to make sure it got working, and it doesn't look like it happened during this meeting, but hopefully, fingers crossed, it will be working at 7. So please feel free to join us again at 7 if you are needing that. If you have any other questions, please feel free to email me. I will be following up tomorrow with everyone with this presentation, the slides, also resources that were shared during the call, and also the link to the presentation on YouTube. so you can share it with anyone else who may be interesting. So thank you so much.
Thank you everyone for coming, and we look forward to continuing the conversation with y'all.
Bye, everybody.